Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into the world of a charming little bird, the Dartford warbler. We're using its Wikipedia page as our main guide here.
That's right.
Our aim is pretty simple. Pull out the most interesting bits about this creature, give you a quick but, solid understanding of what makes it tick.
Exactly. We'll cover everything from, well, how it got its name, which is a bit surprising, to where it likes to live, and the real challenges it's facing now.
Yeah.
It's a great story. Survival, adaptation, and how these big environmental shifts really affect a single species.
And honestly, there are some real aha moments here. We'll find out why this bird, first spotted near Dartford, has a scientific name that points somewhere else entirely.
Hmm.
We'll look at its amazing comeback after nearly disappearing and get a clear sense of why its future is so tied up with, well, climate change.
Yeah, it's quite the tale.
Okay, let's get into it. Starting with the name, which, as you said, has a few twists.
Yeah, what's interesting straight away is, the difference between the common name we use and the official scientific one.
Right.
So the Wikipedia page points out it first got noticed in England back in 1776. A Welsh naturalist, Thomas Pennant, studied some specimens found near Dartford in Kent.
Okay, so Dartford warbler. Seems logical.
And that's where the common name comes from, yes.
Right.
But then science steps in.
Never straightforward, is it?
Not always.
Yeah.
So John Latham did suggest a scientific name, Sylvia dartfordiensis, in 1787. Makes sense, right? Links to Dartford.
Yeah.
But there was an earlier name, Peter Bodart, in 1783, called it Motacilla undata.
Undata.
Yeah, based on a French illustration. And because his name came first, it takes precedence. It was later moved to the genus Caruca, so now it's Caruca undata.
So hold on. The official scientific name doesn't even mention Dartford. That is a surprise.
I know, right?
What does undata mean then?
Undata is from medieval Latin. It means something like with wavy markings.
Wavy marking?
Yeah, it's describing how the bird looks, though the Wikipedia page doesn't say exactly where these markings are. Maybe it was obvious in that French drawing Bodart used.
Interesting. Wonder what caught his eye. Okay, so beyond the name, the Dartford warbler is not alone, evolutionarily speaking. It has relatives.
Oh, definitely. It's seen as part of a superspecies, probably very closely related to Tristram's warbler.
Okay.
And that group also seems close to Marmora's warbler and the Balearic warbler. They're all sort of typical warblers, They used to be in the Sylvia genus, but now they're under Caruca. These things change as we learn more.
Right. Taxonomy is always evolving. And then there's that comparison to the rentit in America. That sounds intriguing. Convergent evolution, it says.
Ah, yes. That's a fantastic example. It shows how totally unrelated species can end up looking similar or doing similar things because they adapt to similar environments.
So they look alike, but aren't close relatives.
Yep. Exactly. The Dartford warbler group and the rennet might share some looks, maybe fill similar ecological roles, but genetically, the rentet is actually closer to parrotbills, not these Caruca warblers at all.
Wow.
Their resemblance is just down to adapting independently to similar lifestyles. Shows you the power of natural selection.
So different paths, similar destination, design-wise. That's pretty cool. Now, before we move off taxonomy, are there different types within the species, subspecies?
Yes, 3 are currently recognized. You've got Caruca undata, Dartfordiensis, that's the one in southern England and northwest France. So a little nod back to Dartford there.
Okay.
Then Caruca undata toni, found in northwest Africa, and Caruca undata itself, which covers the Iberian Peninsula and southern France.
Right, so little regional variations adapting to local conditions. Makes sense. Okay, let's switch gears. What do these birds actually look like? Can you paint us a picture?
Sure, imagine a small songbird, really quite small, about 13 centimeters long, maybe the length of your hand. Yeah. And one of the key things the page notes is its tail. It's quite long compared to other warblers. Gives it this sort of elegant, slender look.
And color-wise, are they flashy, easy to spot?
Not really, no. The plumage is described as having unobtrusive and muted tones, which makes sense. It's camouflage for the dry, scrubby places it likes.
Ah, blending in.
Exactly. Think dry grass colors, grayish twigs. It just disappears.
Smart move for a little bird.
Yeah.
What about telling males and females apart? Any key differences?
There are. The male usually has a gray back and head. Sometimes it's a bit bluish gray or brownish gray, depending on the population.
Okay.
His underside is this kind of dull reddish brown, but with a dirty white patch in the middle of the belly. You might also see light speckles on his throat, and quite noticeably a red ring around his eye.
Ah, the red eye ring. Got it. And the female?
She's generally paler underneath, especially the throat area, And her upper parts are more of a brown or gray. The light spots on her throat are smaller too, less obvious than the males.
And the young ones.
Juvenile birds. They tend to look a lot like the adult females.
Okay, subtle differences then, but clear if you know what you're looking for. Now, where do we actually find them? We know about Dartford, but where else?
Right, well, they're considered naturally quite scarce, but the biggest populations in Europe are actually on the Iberian Peninsula, so Spain and Portugal.
Ah, the stronghold.
Seems to be. They're also found across much of France, parts of Italy, and of course, southern England and South Wales, as we know.
And Africa, too, you mentioned.
Yes, small areas in North Africa, along the northern coast,
Yeah.
and they actually winter in northern Morocco and Algeria.
So definitely a warmer climate bird overall. Western Europe, Northwest Africa. What sort of specific places do they like? Are they picky about their habitat?
They definitely have preferences. They really go for open areas with low, sort of degraded scrub brush. And they're particularly common in heathlands places with lots of heather.
Fits with the camouflage.
Exactly. In winter, they might pop up closer to urban areas sometimes, but they always stick close to shrubs for feeding.
Right. And nesting.
For nests, they like thorny bushes, and they build them really low down, usually within about 60 centimeters, 2 feet off the ground. Maybe the thorns give a bit of extra protection?
Makes sense. Thorns for security keep low.
Seems like they know where they feel safe. Okay, let's get into their lifestyle. How does a Dartford warbler live its life?
Well, they start breeding pretty young, usually when they're just a year old.
Quick starters.
Yeah. They tend to be monogamous, and a pair might stay together for several years, several breeding seasons.
Oh, okay.
And one interesting thing, the male sometimes builds several cock nests, kind of like practice nests, maybe.
Practice nests. Seriously.
Yeah, before the female chooses one, or perhaps they both work together on the final one. It's usually this neat little cup shape, made of grasses, lined with softer stuff like fine roots, feathers. Maybe the males are just showing off their building skills.
Trying to impress. And in the UK, where do they typically build these nests?
In southern England, it's those heathlands again. Lots of gorse or heather,
Yeah.
sometimes near the coast if the habitat's right. Right. And when do they start laying eggs?
It varies a bit. In the warmer spots like southern France and Spain, it's early April. A bit later in southern England, usually mid-April.
Okay. And the eggs themselves, what do they look like?
Usually 3 to 5 eggs in a clutch. They're smooth, glossy looking. The base color is white or maybe pale green, and they're covered in brown speckles, often more speckles at the bigger end.
Mm-hmm.
And they are tiny, average about 17 by 13 millimeters, weigh just 1.4 grams or so. The female does most of the incubating, sitting on them for about 12 to 14 days.
Wow, tiny eggs. Busy parents, I imagine, once they hatch.
Oh, definitely. Both parents are flat out feeding the chicks. They bring them arthropods, caterpillars, butterflies, beetles, spiders, all those small invertebrates.
Protein boost.
Exactly. The young birds fledge, leave the nest after about 10 to 14 days. But the parents keep feeding them for another couple of weeks while they get the hang of finding food themselves.
So, quite involved parenting. And they can have multiple broods.
Yes, they're pretty productive. Usually raise 2 broods a year, sometimes even 3 if it's a really good year with the right conditions.
3. Wow, they really make the most of the season. And their diet, mostly insects and spiders, you said.
That's right. Primarily insectivorous, caterpillars, butterflies, beetles, spiders, all that stuff they can find foraging in the scrub.
Any special hunting tricks?
The Wikipedia page doesn't go into huge detail on that, but their habitat choice suggests they're actively searching among the low plants. That thin, pointed bill is perfect for picking off small bugs.
Right.
And like we said, even in winter near towns, they're always in the shrubs looking for food.
A dedicated bug hunter. And we can't forget their song. What do they sound like?
It's described as a distinctive rattling warble.
A rattling warble.
Yeah, it's how they, mark their territory, find a mate, their unique sound signature.
I can almost picture it. Okay, let's shift now to something a bit more serious, their conservation status. The page lists them as near threatened by the IUCN. Why is that? What's going on?
Well, several things feed into that. Historically, their populations have proven quite vulnerable. There's a really stark example from the UK, that incredibly severe winter of 1962-1963.
Oh, yes.
It was devastating for them. It apparently knocked the entire UK population down to just 10 pairs.
10 pairs, nationwide. That's unbelievably low.
I know. Just hanging on by a thread.
How did they even come back from that? That sounds almost impossible. Shows real resilience.
It really does. Their ability to bounce back is actually pretty good if they have the right habitat and the conditions are favorable.
Okay.
Because they have multiple broods and young bird survival can be quite high in good years, the numbers can recover reasonably well.
Yeah.
And we did see that happen in parts of the UK after 63.
But clearly it's not all smooth sailing, or they wouldn't be near threatened. What are the ongoing threats?
Absolutely. They're very sensitive to things like drought. Drought makes breeding harder, less food maybe,
Yeah.
but it also increases the risk of heath fires.
Fire in their habitat would be catastrophic.
Exactly. Wipes out their home. There was a bad drought in England in 75, 76, for example, and survival rates for young birds were apparently very low. So being so specialized in that habitat makes them vulnerable.
Right, these environmental shocks hit them hard. So what's the bigger picture now, population-wise?
Globally. Well, the estimates cited are from 2012, so a little dated maybe, but back then the global population was thought to be somewhere between 1.1 and 2.5 million breeding pairs.
That sounds like quite a lot, actually.
It does, and the vast majority were in Spain, estimates up to nearly, well, 1.75 million pairs there.
So if the numbers are that high, why the near-threatened status? Why the concern?
It's because even with those large numbers, the trend in Spain, their main stronghold, seems to be downwards.
Okay.
And habitat loss is thought to be a major reason why. When the core population starts declining, even if it's large, it sets off alarm bells for the species' long-term future.
Got it. What about the UK, where they nearly vanished? How are they doing there now? The trend is different, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Interestingly, the UK population has actually increased quite a bit since that crash in 1963.
Really? Why?
It seems to be linked to climatic warming. Milder winters, perhaps. It's allowed them to expand their range northwards a bit and also move to slightly higher altitudes, up to about 400 meters.
Huh.
By 2006, the estimate was over 2,500 pairs in the UK. So, ironically, climate change seems to have helped them there, at least so far.
So a bit of a mixed message from climate change helping in the UK, but maybe not elsewhere.
Well, the broader projections for Europe are the worrying part. Some estimates suggest that by 2080, climate change could make over 60% of their current European habitat unsuitable.
60%? Wow.
Yeah, and we're already seeing signs of decline in Spain and France that might be linked to these bigger shifts.
That does paint a concerning future. So the UK population might be doing better now, but long term, across the whole range, less certain.
Exactly. And if those declines in southern Europe continue, the UK population actually becomes increasingly important for the species' global conservation. Its significance grows.
A shifting conservation picture, then. It really brings home how these huge global patterns affect individual species. And one last little fascinating fact from the page. The first ever photo of one in the wild,
Oh, yeah.
taken in the New Forest in England and published in a book way back in 1905, The Birds of Hampshire.
1905.
Yeah.
That's amazing. A real piece of natural history documentation. It shows how long we've been aware of and trying to understand this little bird.
Absolutely. So, wrapping up our deep dive on the Dartford warbler, we've looked at its name, the common one, and that slightly unexpected scientific one. We've touched on its relatives, and that cool convergent evolution example with the rentit. We've pictured its muted colors, its love for heather and scrub, its busy breeding cycle.
Yeah.
And importantly, we've covered its brush with near extinction in the UK, its current near-threatened status,
Yeah.
and the serious challenge that future climate change poses, potentially reshaping where it can even live in Europe.
It really is a compelling story, isn't it? A small bird, seems ordinary maybe, but it's faced huge challenges, shown amazing resilience, and now faces this new wave of threats from global change.
Yeah.
It highlights just how interconnected everything is, its specific habitat needs, the weather patterns, the climate. It's all woven together. Conservation is complex stuff.
It absolutely is. And it leaves us with a final thought for you listening. When you think about the Dartford warbler's journey, what wider lessons pop out for other specialized species facing such rapid change? What questions or maybe even actions does its story spark for you? Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.